What if I told you that the most powerful manifestation technique in human history has nothing to do with vision boards, positive thinking, or raising your vibration? What if the real secret was buried inside a 2,500-year-old Pali word that almost nobody in the West has ever heard of? A word so powerful that when the Buddha was asked on his literal deathbed, his final breath, his final moment on earth, to give one last teaching to all of humanity, he chose this word. Not love, not meditate, not let go. He said, Appamadena Sampadetha, which translates to accomplish all things through non-negligence. Now, I know what you're thinking. Non-negligence? That doesn't sound sexy. That doesn't sound like a secret. That sounds like something an accountant would say. But stay with me. Because once you understand what Appamadena actually means, not the dictionary translation, but the living practice behind it, you will understand why the law of attraction fails for 99% of people. And why the tiny percentage of people throughout history who achieved extraordinary things, emperors, sages, warriors, builders of civilizations, were all practicing this one principle, whether they knew it or not. By the end of this video, you'll have the complete framework. And fair warning, this might make you uncomfortable, because Appamadena doesn't let you hide. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we go deep into Appamadena, we need to talk about why you're probably here in the first place. You've tried the law of attraction. You've visualized. You've written your goals in present tense. I am wealthy. I am successful. I am in the relationship of my dreams. You've made the vision board. You've watched The Secret maybe 2, maybe 3 times. You've tried to feel the feeling of your wish fulfilled. And maybe some small things happened. A parking spot here. A text from an old friend there. But the big things, the life transformation, the quantum leap, cricket sounds. And here's what nobody in the manifestation community wants to admit. Studies show that excessive positive visualization can actually decrease your likelihood of achieving your goals. Researcher Gabriella Oettingen at NYU ran multiple studies showing that people who spent the most time fantasizing about positive outcomes had lower energy, lower blood pressure, and took less action than people who didn't visualize at all. Why? Because your brain can't fully distinguish between vivid imagination and reality. When you visualize success intensely enough, your nervous system gets a small dose of the reward. You get a micro hit of the satisfaction without having done anything. Your brain goes, oh, we already have it. We can relax now. So you relax, you wait, you trust the universe, you let go and let God. And nothing changes. Now, am I saying that your inner world doesn't matter? That your mindset, your beliefs, your consciousness don't shape your reality? Absolutely not. The ancient Indian traditions, Vedanta, Buddhism, yoga, Jainism, all agree that mind is the forerunner of all states. The Buddha literally said, mind is the chief, mind is the foremost. All things are mind-made. So yes, consciousness matters deeply. But here's the critical distinction that the modern law of attraction movement completely butchered. Knowing that mind shapes reality is the starting point. It is not the practice. The practice, the actual engine of transformation, is Appamadena. And the ancient Indians understood this at a level we have completely forgotten. So let's break this down properly. The word appamada in Pali or apramada in Sanskrit is a compound word. A means none or without. Pamada means negligence, heedlessness, intoxication, or, and this is the one that hits hardest, spiritual laziness. So appamada means the absence of negligence, non-heedlessness, unbroken vigilance. But that clinical translation doesn't capture the energy of this word. Let me give you a better sense of what it actually means in practice. Appamadena is the state of being fully here, with complete seriousness, complete urgency, complete care in everything you do. It's the opposite of sleepwalking through life. It's the opposite of telling yourself, I'll start Monday. It's the opposite of scrolling your phone for 2 hours and then wondering why your life hasn't changed. Think about it this way. You know that feeling when you're driving and you suddenly realize you've been on autopilot for the last 15 minutes? You don't remember the last 3 turns? You weren't really there. That autopilot state, that's pamada. That's heedlessness. And most people live their entire lives in that state. Not just while driving, while working, while talking to their children, while eating, while supposedly manifesting their dreams. Appamadena is the practice of waking up from that trance not once, not during a morning meditation, but continuously throughout the entire day. Now, here's where it gets powerful. The ancient Indian texts don't present Appamadena as just a nice spiritual quality. They present it as the root cause of all achievement, all liberation, all success, both material and spiritual. In the Dhammapada, one of the oldest Buddhist texts, there's an entire chapter dedicated to Appamada, and it opens with this verse. Appamado amatapadam, pamado makuno padam. Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. That's not a metaphor. The text is saying, if you practice Appamadena, you reach the highest state a human being can reach, the unconditioned, the immortal, liberation itself. If you don't, you are essentially already dead, even while breathing. But, and this is crucial, Appamadena isn't only about spiritual liberation. The Indian Emperor Ashoka, who built one of the largest empires in human history, had the word Appamada inscribed on stone pillars across his entire kingdom. This wasn't a monastery teaching. This was governance policy. This was statecraft. The Arthashastra, the ancient Indian treatise on wealth, power, and strategy, is essentially a manual on Appamadena applied to material success. The Bhagavad Gita's central teaching to Arjuna, you could argue the entire message is, stop being heedless, wake up to your duty, and act with full presence. So Appamadena sits at this extraordinary intersection that the modern world has completely lost. It is simultaneously the path to worldly success and spiritual awakening. The ancients didn't separate these the way we do. Okay, so now let's get practical. Because if this just stays as a concept, we're being pamada about Appamadena, which would be deeply ironic. I've studied this principle across multiple ancient Indian traditions, Buddhist, Hindu, Jain, and I've identified 5 dimensions of Appamadena that, when practiced together, create a force in your life that is genuinely unstoppable. Dimension 1. Urgency, without anxiety. This is the foundation. Appamadena begins with a deep recognition of impermanence. The ancient texts are not gentle about this. They say, you are going to die. You don't know when. Every moment you waste is gone forever. Now, the modern self-help world would say, oh, that's negative thinking. That's fear-based. But the ancients understood something profound. The awareness of death, held properly, doesn't create anxiety. It creates aliveness. Think about it. When have you felt most alive? Usually, when there was something at stake. When time felt precious. When you couldn't afford to be heedless. Appamadena says, cultivate that energy not as panic, not as stress, but as a deep, burning recognition that this moment, right now, is irreplaceable. You will never get it back. So, what are you going to do with it? The Zen tradition inherited this from Buddhist Appamadena and turned it into the practice of great doubt, great faith, great determination. The samurai adopted it as the practice of dying before going into battle, not morbidity, but radical aliveness through the acknowledgement of death. Practical application. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you do anything, take 30 seconds and genuinely contemplate. I may not survive this day. This may be my last morning. Given that reality, what matters? What will I give my full attention to today? This isn't affirmation. This is a wake-up slap from the universe. Dimension 2. Radical self-honesty. This is where Appamadena gets uncomfortable, and this is where it directly confronts the law of attraction. The law of attraction says, don't focus on what's wrong. Focus on what you want. Ignore the negative. Keep your vibration high. Appamadena says, you cannot transform what you refuse to see. In the Buddhist tradition, Appamadena includes yoniso manasikara, wise attention, or radical honest investigation of your actual experience, not what you wish were true, not your affirmation. What is actually happening in your mind, your body, your life right now? Are you actually working toward your goal, or are you just consuming content about your goal? Are you actually healing your trauma, or are you just spiritually bypassing it with positive affirmations? Are you actually building something, or are you rearranging your vision board for the 9th time? Appamadena requires you to face these questions without flinching, because heedlessness isn't just distraction, it's self-deception. It's the stories we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of truth. Practical application. Every Sunday, sit down for 20 minutes with a journal and answer one question with brutal honesty. Where am I being negligent in my life? Not, where are you failing? Where are you neglecting? Where are you looking away? Where are you asleep? Write it down. Look at it. Don't fix it yet. Just see it. That seeing itself is Appamadena in action. Dimension 3. Aligned and unrelenting action. Here's where the ancient Indian framework becomes radically different from both the law of attraction and modern hustle culture. The law of attraction says, set your intention, then release it and trust. Hustle culture says, work 18 hours a day, sleep when you're dead. Appamadena says, neither. The Bhagavad Gita captures this perfectly. Krishna tells Arjuna, you have the right to action alone, never to its fruits. Do not let the fruits of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. This is Appamadena applied to action. You act fully, completely, with your entire being, but you don't act from grasping or anxiety about results. You act because right action is the expression of an awakened mind. This is a totally different energy than hustling. Hustlers burn out because they're running on cortisol and fear. Appamadena practitioners are fueled by clarity and presence. They can work for decades without burning out because the action itself is the practice, not a means to an end. Look at anyone who has achieved something extraordinary over a long period of time. Not a viral moment, not a lucky break, but sustained greatness. Gandhi. The builders of the ancient Indian universities like Nalanda. Long-term meditators who practice for 40 years. They all share this quality. Relentless action without frantic energy. Calm fire. That's Appamadena. Practical application. Choose one action connected to your deepest purpose and commit to doing it every single day with full attention for a minimum of 90 days. Not when you feel like it. Not when you're inspired. Every day. This is tapas, the heat of disciplined practice. And the key is, do it with full presence. 30 minutes of fully present work outperforms 3 hours of distracted grinding. Dimension 4. Guarding the mind. This is perhaps the most overlooked dimension, and it's the one that connects Appamadena to the parts of the law of attraction that actually do work. In the Pali texts, one of the core practices of Appamadena is Indriya Samvara, guarding the sense doors. This means being deeply vigilant about what you allow into your mind. Not because negative thoughts are low vibration, that's a shallow understanding, but because the mind is a garden, and whatever you plant, waters, and tend will grow. The ancients understood neuroplasticity 2,500 years before neuroscience. They knew that repeated mental patterns become deep grooves, samskaras, in Sanskrit, and that these grooves eventually become your default state of consciousness, your automatic reactions, your character, your destiny. So Appamadena includes being incredibly intentional about your inputs. What are you watching? What are you reading? Who are you spending time with? What conversations are you having? What thoughts are you rehearsing? This isn't about raising your vibration. This is about taking responsibility for the architecture of your own mind. And here's the crucial difference from the law of attraction approach. You don't guard your mind by suppressing negativity. You guard it by being so present, so awake, that unhelpful patterns are seen the moment they arise, and in the seeing, they lose their power. You don't fight negative thoughts. You outgrow them through awareness. Practical application. For 1 week, track your information diet. Every time you consume something, social media, news, conversation, entertainment, note it, and note how it affects your mental state 30 minutes later. At the end of the week, look at the data. You will be shocked. Then, eliminate or reduce the top 3 inputs that are making you heedless, reactive, or dull. Dimension 5. Continuity. This final dimension is what separates Appamadena from every self-help technique you've ever tried. Most people practice awareness on the meditation cushion and then forget about it for the rest of the day. Most people journal in the morning and then sleepwalk through the afternoon. Most people have bursts of motivation that last 3 days. Appamadena is about continuity, unbroken, constant, not intense, continuous. The metaphor used in the ancient texts is oil being poured from one vessel to another. Watch oil pour. It doesn't come in drips and bursts. It flows in an unbroken, smooth, continuous stream. That's what your practice should look like. Not peak moments of awareness followed by hours of heedlessness, but a gentle, persistent, unbroken thread of wakefulness woven through your entire day. When you eat, be there. When you walk, be there. When you work, be there. When you have a conversation, actually be there. When you rest, even then, rest with full presence. Conscious rest, not numbing out. This continuity is what creates transformation. Not the intensity of a single session, the unbrokenness of the practice across time. The ancient Jain tradition calls this samyak charitra, right conduct, lived continuously. Not perfectly continuously. There's a difference. Perfection is pamada's trap. It makes you quit after the first failure. Continuity says, you drop the thread, pick it up, right now, without drama, without self-judgment. Just pick it up. Practical application. Set 3 random alarms throughout your day. When each alarm goes off, stop whatever you're doing and ask, am I here? Am I awake? Am I being heedful right now? That's it. 3 moments of remembering per day. Over time, the gaps between remembering will shrink. The thread will become more continuous. This is how real transformation happens, not in a flash of insight, but in the patient weaving of awareness into the fabric of ordinary life. So now let me tie this all together and explain why Appamadena succeeds where the law of attraction fails. The law of attraction operates on a model of desire-belief-reception. You want something, you believe you can have it, and then you receive it from the universe. The problem? This model has 3 fatal flaws. Fatal flaw Hason. It centers on wanting, and every ancient Indian tradition agrees the Buddha, Patanjali, the Upanishads, craving and aversion are the root causes of suffering. Building your entire practice around, I want this, is building on quicksand. Even if you get what you want, the satisfaction is temporary, and the wanting machine immediately generates the next desire. Appamadena doesn't center on wanting, it centers on waking up. And paradoxically, when you wake up, the things you truly need begin to flow toward you, not because you're sending out vibrational signals to the cosmos, but because a fully awake person sees opportunities that a sleepwalking person misses. A fully present person does higher quality work. A heedful person makes better decisions. A vigilant person doesn't self-sabotage. It's not magic, it's awareness. And awareness is more powerful than magic. Fatal flaw #2. The law of attraction is passive. Ask, believe, receive. 2 out of 3 of those steps involve sitting still and thinking. Appamadena is fundamentally about engagement, not withdrawal from life, but radical, full-bodied participation in it. Fatal flaw #3. The law of attraction has no mechanism for dealing with failure, pain, and difficulty. When something bad happens, the LOA community says, you attracted it with your thoughts. This is not only unhelpful, it's cruel. And it's a breeding ground for self-blame and shame. Appamadena has a completely different relationship with difficulty. Difficulty is not a sign that you're vibrating wrong. Difficulty is the training ground. It's where heedfulness is forged. The ancient texts say that a practitioner of Appamadena doesn't avoid suffering. They use suffering as fuel for deeper wakefulness. Lost your job? That's a call to Appamadena. Wake up, investigate, act. Heartbroken? That's a call to Appamadena. Feel it fully, learn, grow. Failed at something you cared about? That's a call to Appamadena. Examine what happened with radical honesty. Adjust. Continue. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is negative manifestation. Everything is material for awakening. This is why Appamadena works. It doesn't require the universe to be a cosmic vending machine. It doesn't require magical thinking. It just requires you fully showing up, fully awake, fully engaged, continuously. And the results? They take care of themselves. I want to leave you with a story. There's a passage in the ancient Pali texts where the Buddha is asked, what is the one quality that, when developed and cultivated, encompasses all wholesome qualities? Think about that question. One quality that contains everything. His answer, Appamadena, heedfulness. He said, just as the footprint of every animal that walks the earth can fit inside the footprint of an elephant, the elephant's footprint being the largest of all, in the same way, all wholesome qualities can be gathered under the single heading of heedfulness. Every meditation technique, every virtue, every strategy for success, every path to liberation, every system of self-improvement, they all fit inside this one principle. Be here, fully, continuously, without negligence. That's it. Not because it's easy, it might be the hardest thing you ever do, but because it's true. And in a world drowning in manifestation hacks and vibrational shortcuts and 3-step formulas, truth is the most radical act of all. The Buddha's last words were not visualize your dream life. They were not trust the universe. They were not let go and receive. They were Appamadena Sampadetha. Strive on, with diligence, with vigilance, with unbroken heedfulness. Accomplish all things through the refusal to fall asleep. Your life is waiting for you to wake up. Don't waste another day. If this video shifted something in you, hit subscribe. I'm going deep into these ancient frameworks, the real teachings, not the watered-down Western versions, in every video on this channel. Drop a comment and tell me, where in your life have you been heedless? Where have you been asleep? And what are you going to do about it, starting today? I'll see you in the next one.